Dr. Swamidass, you mentioned in your talk that you're a theistic evolutionist who's comfortable with the story of Adam and Eve, and that nothing in science disproves the story of Adam and Eve. I found that really interesting. That is not a view I've ever heard before. I've very much grew up as an older creationist and still kind of think of myself as such. Obviously, you can't respond to everything because there's you don't need one false to disprove your point. But could you respond to one or two of the more common examples that people have brought up saying this bit of science disproves the story of Adam and Eve, and then respond and show how that doesn't?
Well, so the entire scientific case against Adam and Eve is that it never dipped down to a single couple of what we see as anatomically modern humans. And so, I agree with that. It doesn't look like that. And if it did, I mean, it's just not clear in the data, and it really looks like something else. But like I just gave you a scenario where we have Adam and Eve and a larger population, and then they kind of spread and blend in with biologically compatible people. And nothing in science disputes that. It just doesn't. And like anyone who tells you otherwise, like doesn't actually give you, either they don't know, or they're not giving you the whole story, or they haven't thought about it carefully. Now, why is it that this maybe is the first time you've heard that in the conversation? I don't know. I think the best answer I can give is, I'm a Biologos speaker, so most of the people I know at Biologos would actually take a different point of view as me. When I've talked to them about it, I just don't think that, their point of view, when they read Genesis, they don't feel like anything in their faith hangs there. And they're not just as concerned about it. And, I get that, because I'm not threatened by what happens in Genesis either. But I do think that sometimes there's a bit of a blind spot when people come with curious and concerned questions. And like I said, I just don't think it's consistent with either science or our faith to take a curious question and respond with incurious ambivalence. I think a better response is curiosity and creativity. So some of the best stuff out there, I would say, so actually, to be clear, I'm actually in the middle of writing a review from this. If you go to my blog, peacefulscience.org, and sign up there, you'll see it when it comes out. I actually linked to several places where people have been kind of talking about this. One person is Jack Collins. He's a professor at Covenant Seminary. He has an article that's like free to view where he just like bends over backwards to find as many different scenarios as he could that involve a historical Adam in an evolutionary context, saying, well, this is kind of important still. I thought that was great. I just felt like he's a little bit like a really grouchy prophet crying in the wilderness, because you could just see, why are you walking away from this? And I think a lot of my friends and biologists are like, why is this important? and another one I think is chapter 12 of Origins by Deb and Lauren Harzma. So that's the president of Biologos. In that chapter, they go through 5 different scenarios that show different ways how to think about Adam in the context of evolution. I think that's exactly right. I just don't think it should have been one chapter, and I think there's a weird tentativeness about it. Like there's something dangerous about maybe speculating. And if that's our attitude, we'd never have the Chronicles of Narnia. And I just don't understand that hesitance. Another one, too, is Greg Davidson. He wrote another article. So, there are people thinking about this for some reason that just hasn't really risen to the surface. So I think on the theistic evolutionist side, I think they just don't understand why it's important from their point of view, so they don't put it out there. I do. Also, a lot of them don't actually know the science on this piece that well because it's been neglected, this whole issue of genealogical ancestry. Now, on the non-theistic evolutionist side, a lot of people are not actually motivated by, people are motivated by a lot of things, but one major motivator is being against evolution. So they tend to present evolution in the most theologically unacceptable ways. And so even if they came across what I'm saying, they would kind of de-emphasize it and say, that's not what it's about, that's not possible. Like that Josh guy, he's out there in the corner. But in the end, I think it's just truth. There's nothing in science that, it pushes it just in a very limited way on what you see in Scripture about the traditional account. Maybe that's false, okay? I'm not trying to say that is truth. That's not where I hang my hat. I'm at the empty tomb. And if you're not there with me, we should have a conversation afterwards. This is Easter, right? You should come tomorrow when I talk about this on the campus. But at the same token, all that evolution tells us, or seems to tell us, if we take, the world as we see it, is that Adam and Eve weren't alone on this earth as biologically similar people. But this doesn't mean that they were all the same. And, there's all these little, clues in the scripture for that. Like, you can't actually even believe from scripture that we come from a pure line. It says that, if you take it seriously, it says that we are interbreeding with these things called Nephilim. What are they? Once again, I'm not trying to be overly concordist. I'm not saying they're Neanderthals. I'm not saying anything like that. I'm just saying that, those are clearly beings that we can actually produce biological children with that are kind of a different source, a different stock. Another great example is Cain's wife. Cain gets banished. There's nothing about his wife being banished, too. And it says that he's scared of, he wouldn't be able to find a place. There's towns of people. God has to put a mark to protect them. I don't know about you, but the earth is pretty large. It seems like it'd be pretty easy to get away from, the 20 people on earth at that time, right? It's not that hard to get away from it. He's scared. It seems like there's people out there. And then it says that he goes and builds a city. Where did the people come to fill the city? It just doesn't make a ton of sense. And, we've kind of passed over these things, and it does raise the question of, maybe we missed this stuff there. And maybe even when it was being originally written, they didn't actually see Adam and Eve being alone in the world. That's the only thing that's pressed on by science. And like I said, you actually see evidence for that in Scripture itself. So I don't know why we're threatened by it. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you. Thank you very much for that.